You know, the last time we talked, I wanted to ask you about your health, but we didn't get a chance. You know, we were talking about so many other things, but I'm glad we have this opportunity. And I just want to jump right in because I just want this to be a really informative conversation for all of us.
Sure.
We've always been, our forum has always been on the front lines of breast cancer awareness. And every time we say it, we know that 1 in 8 women in their lifetime will get breast cancer. And we always add that little caveat, and there's a small percentage of men who will get breast cancer. So take us back to when you started feeling like something's really off.
Well, you know, it was a real small window that happened. I was just, I wear white T-shirts under my shirts, and 3 consecutive days, there was just a dot of blood. If you took a white sheet of paper and had a red pen and just tapped it, that's the size of it. And the 3rd day, I asked my wife, I said, you know, Gina, this is weird. Did you get some new T-shirts or something? I keep seeing these little red spots. And she said, that's interesting because when I clean the sheets on your side of the bed, I'm beginning to see these drops of blood. Well, most people don't know, but I did 20 years in my corporate career in diagnostic imaging. And in fact, sold zero radiography, which was the leading modality for breast cancer from 1980 to 1988. And I knew that one of the symptoms for men is nipple discharge. And I knew that I immediately needed to go to my doctor, which I did, got a mammogram that day, went back, got a biopsy, and within a 16-day window had a mastectomy and then recovered.
Wow. So immediately you went back to your own experience, understanding the imaging. And did you know at that moment that you would have to have a mammogram?
Yeah, I actually did. I mean, I was one of the best at this at Xerox Medical Systems. Actually, I was the #1 sales rep in the world 3 out of 8 years. So I really knew the technology, and I really understood mammography, and I really understood breast cancer. What I didn't know anything about was BRCA2 mutation, genetics, because for me, cause and effect, the effect was having what I call male chest cancer. I prefer to use that messaging for men. What I thought was that I had male chest cancer. What I didn't know is that the cause was because I was BRCA2 genetic mutated, which means for men having a greater risk, a greater chance of having male chest cancer, prostate cancer, melanoma, and pancreatic cancer. And I knew nothing about genetics, and I had a steep learning curve. And I tell everyone, this is equally about getting genetic testing as it is getting a mammogram.
Why did you go the next step of having genetic testing? Because there is such a finite group of men that will have, as you call, male chest cancer. It's a finite group. So why would you then, or you and your doctor, make the decision for you to get genetic testing?
Genetic testing was part of the process when I got the mammogram and the ultrasound, and then we got genetic testing all together. And it was just to see if I was BRCA2 mutated or not, to make a decision if I was going to get both a dual mastectomy or just one. And it was part of that decision making. But I do want to clarify something. And I say this a lot. In 1980, these were the percentages for men, 1%.
Right.
1980, 1 out of 10 women. In 2020, it's 1 out of 8 women. And in 2020, it's still 1%. You know why? Because those are inaccurate numbers for men. Grossly inaccurate numbers.
Do you think men just aren't talking about it, or their numbers are not being reported?
I think men are not talking about it. And when you say, hey, you got breast cancer, you're not going to get a man excited about wanting to go get a mammogram. We have to message it different. That's a tremendous amount of shame and embarrassment of telling a man. We don't use those words. We walk around and outdoors with our shirts off. We see TV commercials with our shirts off. We have to change the messaging if we want men to engage the right way here.
I think you're right on point, and I think that's one of the really important reasons why we wanted to try to have this conversation with you, is because men are not talking about a lot of the issues that women are freely and openly talking about. And subsequently, what we've done is we've pushed aside that 1% because we think it never happens. It's happening more than what we know. Men are just not talking about it.
You're absolutely right. I've had so many men come up to me in the last 14 months and say, and whisper most of the time, you know, man, I got that too. I've had so many men say that because of the shame and embarrassment that comes with it. I know the diagnostics of this. I wasn't happy that day to open a door that said female breast imaging. I mean, that's not, we got to really think that through if we're really going to give men an opportunity to have the same opportunity as women. We have to use our messaging and even the process. When I went to get my mammogram, I sat there and a nurse came over and said, "Excuse me, sir, I noticed you've been waiting. Are you waiting on your wife? Is your wife here?"
Right.
Because it's just the assumption.
Right.
Why would I be sitting there? Right.
And as you say that, in all of the years that I've gotten a mammogram, I've never seen a man that I knew was waiting to have a mammogram. If he was there, it was assumed that he was waiting for his wife. And so at what point, when you get this news that it is breast cancer or chest cancer, how do you begin to process that?
Well, I processed it somewhat easier. It's never easy to any form of cancer when you hear the doctor say you have cancer, regardless of what it is. Right. But the thing for me was, well, why me? Why me? I knew enough to know, to have known that I was at a very early stage because I had no any type of lump or any type of predisposition whatsoever. So I knew that I was at an early stage. And by the way, I was fortunate to be stage 1A. Fortunate enough not to have to take chemo, and grateful. I take 1 pill a day. But I asked that question, and I remembered this prayer that I got on the back of a card from a missionary in Mexico. And that prayer was, pray not for a life free from trouble. Pray for triumph over trouble. For what you and I call adversity, God, the universe, whatever name, calls opportunity. And I immediately start literally saying, well, what the hell is the opportunity inside of this?
Right.
So I got male chest cancer. What's the opportunity? And then, after I had surgery, it became clear when Good Morning America and others asked me to tell my story, then the opportunity was to tell my story and hopefully save others' lives.
Were you reluctant when people started to ask you to share your story, or was it just, I'm going to share this story because it's necessary?
Oh, I wasn't reluctant. I didn't hesitate. I wanted to share this story because it was necessary. And I've shared a lot of my life because I thought it was necessary about racism and growing up in the South and other things in my life.
And so did you decide with the gene what was going to be the course of treatment and how you were going to, having the BRCA2 gene, how were you and your doctors going to proceed? Were you going to, did you have a double mastectomy or did you just have a single mastectomy, and what would be the protocol?
Single, and unfortunately, it's a lifestyle change that comes with it, though. I got into research at the University of Pennsylvania. Again, I wanted to hopefully help others. I had to call, because this is genetic. So I had to call everyone in my family that I could reach. Fortunately, I have a niece that's a doctor in Birmingham, and so she could call that third generation of family. Some I didn't really know, third cousins, second cousins. Obviously, I called my kids first. And so because I wanted everyone to get this BRCA test, which is a simple saliva test. And it's so simple and easy. And it's even shipped to your home, and you can talk to the doctors and consultation on the phone. So I got everyone I could to take the test. And I went a step further because there's also a cardiovascular testing genetically, and my grandfather and my father had died of heart disease. So I wanted to get that. And unfortunately, that came back negative. But I'm really into this new world of medicine called genetics.
Wow. Had you been, before that, Mr. Knowles, had you been conscientious about your health and about your genetic predisposition for a heart attack, being that, you had a history there? Had you kind of looked at your family lineage and genes before this, or did this just make you more aware?
The answer is yes and no. I had, in terms of breast cancer in the 80s, because in the 80s it was about family history. I knew the family history. My aunt, my mother's sister, died of breast cancer. Two of her daughters died of breast cancer, and I knew that. My father's side, one of his sisters is a survivor of breast cancer, so I knew that. But I knew that my grandfather and father had died of heart disease. But I'm one of those people that go routinely to the doctor. I mean, again, I did 20 years of diagnostic imaging. I sold MRI and CT scanners. I was a neurosurgical specialist. So I know the advantage in health and wellness. It's all about early detection. And those that find it early, whatever it is medically, finding it early means great results and great lifestyle living. Finding it late, it's not going to end up very well.
And so your prognosis, what are the doctors saying now? You said that you're feeling well and healthy and you just take a pill a day. What are they saying about long term?
Well, I'm grateful to say I'm cancer free today. And I always use the word today. I'm cancer free today. I've made a lifestyle change. I've lost over 25 pounds. I don't drink alcohol. I don't eat meat. I eat fish. Maybe I'd say I don't eat anything but fish once a week. And I made a healthy lifestyle change. And that comes with it. I get a mammogram every 6 months. I go and I had to go to my skin dermatologist to get all of my moles checked to make sure melanoma is one of the things of BRCA. So I had to make an appointment with my dermatologist. I have an oncologist. I have a team, and I stay and consult with them. And I routinely get physicals. I do that all the time.
So how does that diagnosis, Mr. Knowles, how does that change your view? Anytime we hear the word cancer, there is almost a shifting of how you look at where you've been, where you are, and hopefully where you're going to be able to go. What does that do?
Well, fortunate for me, I had already made that shift. I made that shift about 3 or 4 years ago. And so that shift continues, to be connected to family, to live every day with a sense of urgency and purpose, to also have mental health. I have had a Black male therapist for well over 10 years, not on an ongoing basis. And so I consult my team. My team is my therapist, my oncologist, my general physician, my surgeon, my dermatologist. I know my radiologist by name.
That's awesome. I think everybody should have a team.
Yeah, it's about having a team.
What happened 3 years ago that created that sense of urgency about life? Did something happen?
No, nothing happened. I remarried 7 years ago, and it just was a gradual shift. Being happy and having a sense of purpose and giving back.
And so one of the other things that you're doing, just to shift gears a little bit, is that you recently started a new job, so to speak, at the University of Houston.
I don't do jobs.
What do we call it?
I only live my passion. I don't do anything I don't want to do. Because when you live your passion, you never work a day in your life. And what coexists with passion are work ethics.
We'll call it a project, a new project.
I like project.
A new project.
Project. And so what this is a master class in music business in a digital age. And it's open to everyone. It's online, so it's open to the world. We only have limited amount of seating, 35. But I'm excited about working with University of Houston. I haven't before. Currently at 2 other universities. Right now, I teach at Prairie View A&M University, HBCU. Teach around the U.S. Online at the Art Institute, which is 8 physical colleges around America, but because of coronavirus, it's online. And I teach there a really exciting topic, one of my books, Emancipation of Slaves Through Music, what that journey was like coming from Africa for 2 years on that ship and not being able to communicate because Africa is very tribal. It's quite interesting and fascinating once we understand pretty much every genre of music was created in Africa. Pretty much every instrument was created in Africa. But his story won't allow you to know the actual truth.
Does it surprise you how you could have accomplished so much in your life, but yet each progressive year, there's something else that you're birthing, some project that maybe you had never thought of, that you found I could be passionate about teaching young adults and giving them this master class, literally giving them the game. Does that surprise you?
No, it doesn't, because most people don't know this is my 14th year in the classroom. 14 years. I was 8 years at Texas, 8 years just at Texas Southern alone. So most people don't know that part of me. They just know the music industry. And
they know Beyonce and Solange's daddy.
They don't know what I really do. So no, it would not be a surprise. I even went back over the summer myself back to school again. And I went back years ago and got my MBA in strategic planning and organizational culture. And I got my PhD in business administration years ago, 10 years ago. But I just went back to Harvard to take a professional development course in ethical leadership. And I'm looking forward to transitioning that course to race and ethical leadership. And that's something that I'm working on that for the next within the next year or two.
Mm-hmm. And you say it in this masterclass that you think that with, and I'm paraphrasing, with the discipline that anybody can have success like what you've seen. Do you really believe that?
Oh no, I don't believe that at all. This is not any music industry. It's not anybody because it's so many moving parts. Unlike most businesses, you've got to know thousands of things. There's that many moving parts. And so those that are really, really successful at it is because they're also extremely knowledgeable at it. Now, I'm not talking about from an artist stand of view right now. I'm talking about the behind the scenes. There's a reason we call it music business. We tend to say in our industry, 70% of it is business, 30% of it is creative. Mm-hmm. A major business that's operating behind the scenes that most people never see. You know that because you're in entertainment. So that's what this is. It's giving that knowledge for the music industry. And it's changed, in this digital age and streaming and social media, it's changed. So some of our approach has changed, some of our marketing approaches. And then we'll touch on artist development as well. Mm-hmm. That's also a role of a manager or A&R person inside of a record label. But a lot of the reasons why you see failure, and most people don't know in the music industry, almost 95%, we have about a 95% failure rate of artists. Wow. And it's not all their fault. Mm-hmm. Some and a lot of it is because that team is not knowledgeable. When you go get friends and sometimes family who don't put in the work, and just anyone that's just not knowledgeable, this is what happens. And so here's an opportunity to learn my successes and learn from my failures, because I'll share those as well. Mm-hmm.
And don't you think that the artists need to be more knowledgeable about the business side of their business?
I think artists should have a general understanding of the business. And we invite artists for that reason. But to be really high in your game, and by the way, this is not a class for people that want to be average.
Absolutely not.
I don't teach average. Mm-hmm. I teach exceptional. Mm-hmm. But it's a lot that an artist has to do to continue to develop their creativity and to continue to develop their songwriting skills, their performance skills. Mm-hmm. So they just would not have the time to do full-time business. Some have tried it, that didn't work out very well. It'd be like asking the Michael Jordan, who I think is the greatest basketball player ever, to also be the general manager and president of the organization. That makes no sense.
What about team building? Because you talked about that just in health, but team building has got to be incredibly important, especially in business. Putting the right team around.
It is. Team building really starts with leadership. In the music business, it's the role of the manager working with the artist to put that team together. There's a significant team. There's a creative team. There's a business team. We're talking 20, 30 people that if it's done at a major level, that's reporting to the manager. And even in entrepreneurship, in any organizational culture, team building really starts at leadership. And what type of team are you going to have? A unified team where everybody's working for the same goal in the same direction? Or are you going to have a team that's of harmony? And in a harmonized team, you encourage differences. you want there to be differences because that's how you grow and that's how you become better. So it's all about leadership, and do you have the traits of leadership? I can go on and on. I give seminars on all this
Wow,
stuff.
it's amazing. Well, listen, I mean, go ahead, go ahead.
No, I'm pausing because I know I would take up too much time.
No, I just wanted to thank you because I think that every time we talk and every time you give a seminar and every time you give of yourself, you know, it helps people to glean into just a small amount of how brilliant you are. And I said this last time and I'll say it again, not to stroke you, but just because it's true. I think that the brilliance that lies within is what helps to create the talent, you know, because the talent is such a small piece of the puzzle. But without the team, without the knowledge, without you continuing to grow your skill set, you know, I don't know that it happens. And I think that the fact that you're so giving of your time and your talent, because that is a talent, that it's going to hopefully help a lot of people to get better. And I know just today we've learned how important team building is. And, you know, we say team building, but there's so many facets of team building that I don't think we even really understand.
I think you're absolutely right because, again, it starts with leadership. And does that leadership have empathy? Can they communicate effectively? And that means listening. Can they hold people accountable and know the difference between responsibility and accountability? Can they let go of their ego? And I call ego is the anesthesia that deadens the pain of stupidity. Can they let go of that? Do they remain calm when there's a crisis? And so many things that go in leadership to build this team. And I've been on many teams. I've been on basketball teams, sales teams, marketing teams, street teams. So I understand the concept of team and what it means to have a leader as well that sets the goal and direction of the organization.
So when you climb to the peak of the music industry initially with Destiny's Child, how do you keep that ego in check?
Well, for me, for 2 years, got on the airplane on Sundays, flew from New York. I lived in New York then. Flew to Nashville and taught at Fisk University, where I graduated, my undergraduate. And I did that for free because I wanted to give back. And I think that's important when you look at the DNA of achievers and you look at the things that they do and the different traits. One is giving back to the community, giving back to wherever their type of resources and employment, but giving back to others becomes part of it. And I think that's really, really important that we never forget where we come from. You're talking to a Black man that was born in 1952 in Gaston, Alabama, who grew up on a dirt road with an outhouse, who never went to a Black school, who got beaten, spitting, electric prodded because he integrated elementary, junior high, and the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga with others. So I have a different perspective on all of life.
Wow. And so did those experiences, did that help you to keep that ego subdued or keep it anesthetized?
Yeah, it was both. I love your second word, anesthetized. It did both. But I've always thought of myself as confident, absolutely confident. But I never have looked at myself, and I don't think I have the reputation of someone with a big ego, normally very humble, outspoken, but I don't have to get the attention because one of the characteristics of an effective manager is you let your artists get all the attention and you stay in the background. That's the characteristics of being an effective manager in the music industry.
Wow. So what's next for you? I know you were going to do the plays, but COVID happened. So it just seems like there's no slowing down for you.
Well, this is what's next for me. What's next for me is looking at water.
That's beautiful. That is beautiful. That gives me goosebumps.
That's next for me. It's just chilling, writing books, teaching online, giving lectures, and doing motivational speeches. I can't wait till we can get back to do that in person. I enjoy it today. That's my passion. That's my give back, and I love it. That's what's next for me. Next for me is I've spent a lifetime winning awards, watching other people become great, and doing the impossible. What's for me is I work every day on happiness.
Wow.
Work every day on happiness. Putting that same amount of energy that I put in getting #1 awards and making me happy.
What about your spiritual life, your spiritual walk? Do you have one?
I believe there's a power greater than me that exists. I don't necessarily give him a name that most people do. I just say the universe. I don't give it different religious names. But I absolutely know that there's a power greater than me exists, and I have faith in that power.
That's awesome. Mr. Knowles, thank you so much for taking the time, and we can't wait for the next book, the next project, the next journey, and the next great people that you will have a hand in helping for them to envision their dreams, because I believe that that's what you're doing with so many young students, helping them to birth and grow their dreams.
Well, thank you.
You can stream our podcast at Apple Music or Spotify. You can also check out full episodes on YouTube. Just type my name in.